be here now. I'd like to be here. What's the feel? What's the sensation that you find that's loudest? Is it more the foreground, the weather, the thoughts, feelings, and sensations? Or more the background, this self, this beingness, this causeless okayness, this peace, this love? Can our systems include both? The background that some say is always here. It's just, in Rowena's words, it just gets blocked by our thoughts, feelings, and sensations, our parts. And for this to be kind of a real life for all of us, this precious time that we've chosen to come be together, Milo, Sarah, Nora, Rowena, Jack, and Raymond, and Sid. What's it like to be you right now? What's your biggest block, your loudest part, this that obscures? And what's your relationship with the foreground? How are you relating to it? In my system, it's been a uncomfortable morning. I have an experience on Facebook of someone who is offended by what I share. It even feels a bit like having a stalker. And so in my system, there's this protector part that says, no, I don't like this. I want this to be different. This shouldn't happen. What's the loudest part in your system right now? What's the loudest thought, feeling, or sensation? What's the loudest one? And where do you hear it from? Where does it? Is it in front of you? Is it in your head? Is it behind you? Or where do you feel it? Where is that? Where does it arise in you? This that is loud, the loudest of the foreground. And just to kind of keep us from blending with that expression, what's the second loudest? Like in me, there's this kind of reflective part. Oh, was that helpful to share what was going on with Sid, or did that kind of distract others from their own inner world? I have a thought that's kind of reflecting on that. And that's over to the left for me. And then the protector part that says no, it's just right in front of me to the right. And it's kind of big. What are your two loudest voices right now? And for some of us, self beingness might be so pronounced and full that we might really have to go subtle to find such expressions. It might be just, oh, my back hurts a little bit, or what am I having for lunch today? So as you find those two, see if you can find where they are. And then for me, what becomes interesting is, how is my system responding to these arisings? And just together with our little warm up and play, let's just be in three different responses. The first one, as we're aware of these parts, we just rest back in being, in self, where there's a loving indifference towards those arisings. See if you can join me in just thinking in to being, stepping back, zooming out, opening up, where the only interest is in this that is peace, love, fulfillment, okayness. What's most like peace that's here now? What's most like peace that's here now? What's most like love? Whatever your word is for it, it might be nurture, tenderness, care, compassion, welcoming. What's most like love that's here now? And how do you know it's here? Can you feel it? Is it pervading through your system, as you? And what's most like an okayness, an ease, perhaps a flow, just an okayness that's here? What's most like that which is here now? Are you okay? Is there okayness? If you can touch this kind of causeless, ever-present okayness that's not conditioned on experience. And what's it like to rest here as self, as this beingness? And from this that I call the first view, or riding the bike of being, can there be just a loving indifference towards the weather, towards that which comes and goes, towards our parts, as we rest in beingness? And if you're ready, from here, we're going to open the door and let everything in and welcome it all. So if we were to open up from here, resting as this beingness, and just a curiosity. What thoughts are here? What feelings and sensations are here? What's the loudest thought that's here again? Maybe it's the same one from 5 minutes ago. And what's the second loudest thought, feeling, or sensation? And where do you find them? Where do you hear, see, or feel them? And from here, can they just be welcomed? As if this beingness is this infinite, warm, loving hot tub that just welcomes all of you, all of your parts, everything that arises. Rowena's words, the step blocks. Can all of that just be lovingly welcomed by your intrinsic nature, this welcoming you are? In Effortless IFS, we call this the second view, or Rumi's guest house. So that all of our guests, everything that arises is just welcomed. And notice, is there anything you have to do to welcome these parts? And maybe there's a part that says, oh, I can help. We can welcome. We can do this right. There's a way to do this. And just notice that part. And is that part welcomed as well, effortlessly? What's it like to be here as the beingness that welcomes, and where all of these parts are here too. The fullness of this foreground and background. Is there tension beingness? Or does it more feel like just the love of self that welcomes? And as you feel parts that kind of grab or resist, and perhaps tension arises, I feel it in me and my belly. Can that also be fully welcomed, just as it is? And then if I was to ask you, what is it that your parts are wanting? What is it that your parts are truly longing for? See if, just as Rowena spoke of kind of the simplicity of just one word to describe her parts, could there be one word for, in general, what these parts that are present in you are longing for? What are they longing for? What are you longing for? What are you wanting? Really? Is it peace? Is it acceptance? Is it connection? Is it love? Is it belonging? Is it care? Is it joy? Is it flow? Is it ease? Is it relief? What is it that your parts are longing for? What is it that you are longing for? And what's most like that which is here now? What's most like what is being longed for that is here now? In my system, as I describe this resistance that's there, this protection, this fear, there's a longing for relief. It's relief, okayness. What is it that your parts are longing for? What's your one word, and what's most like that which is here now? We're almost done, just a little bit more. Just to notice again the sense of welcoming from the hot tub of the guest house for the parts. And if there's some blending happen with a part, see if you can zoom out. Just open up or fall back, sink back in to the spaciousness, the self, the hot tub, as the parts are being welcomed. See if you can be aware of at least two parts at any time. If you can be aware of two or more parts, that will hold you in, that will allow the system to stay in this place of spacious awareness. And then again, from this space, let's just notice, is there okayness with what's here? Is there okayness? Is there welcoming of what's arising? Just intrinsically, a non-doing, doing, a non-doing welcoming. Everything just welcomed. And we're gonna step up a little bit and see where our systems can go. Is there acceptance of your parts just the way they are? Another step up. Is there a love of the parts just where they are? To see if that's natural. Is there a curiosity? An effortless curiosity? Is there a fascination with the parts? Can we touch a fascination? And lastly, perhaps, is there an adoration? Is there an adoring of your parts just the way they are? Can that be touched as a flavor of being? And then, how far are you from your parts? How far are they from you? And speaking of that, where is this you? How are they? How far are they from self, from beingness, from you? And as we notice whatever degree of intimacy there is with your parts, can you glimpse that this that is aware, this awareness, isn't completely separate from what the parts are made of? Can you glimpse something that's the same, that perhaps they're not completely separate from self, from beingness, from the background? This is the third view as we glimpse from time to time what we call Rumi's field, this connectedness, this of the same, that all is of self. And this is often when people describe spiritual experiences, this bliss, this one love, this unity. They're tasting this. Can it be tasted as you're aware of your parts right now? Something that isn't completely different, completely separate. So as we gradually start coming back together again, what's it like to be you? What's it like to be here in all of this? And can there be a glimpse of these three different views, perhaps even all here now? This first one of just resting as beingness, this loving indifference towards the parts. The only interest is self, the beingness. And at the same time, the second view of everything is being welcomed. Everything is welcomed and loved just as it is. And then this third view that, wow, perhaps there isn't truly fully separation. And then gradually let your eyes like gently open just a little bit and see as you come back, you become aware of the six of us who are here with you, this connectedness, that you're not alone. If these views, if these perspectives, if this spaciousness, this celebration, this openness can maintain. And then as we're coming back together, it might be I kind of like to shake things off and move because that was a lot. I have parts that were really exhausted trying to follow all of that. So it helps to shake it off. And also the sense of kind of the fun in our groups that there's really no place that we're going. We're just celebrating you. We're celebrating how life is right now. So nothing needs to be held on to, nothing at all. And as you're doing that, maybe also I'm just going to do 30 seconds of my little housekeeping that I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm a mediator. And for me, we're friends and colleagues exploring together. And everybody's good being responsible for their journeys today. If I could get a thumbs up from you, please. And then secondly, I've got, if I turned it on, I did. Always record these, but only my image, only my square will ever be shared, never yours. However, the audio that you share today could be included. So I make this available to those who don't come, who are interested. However, Rowena is new with us. If there's ever any discomfort in that, just let me know. I make you a co-host and you just click pause when you speak. That's my preference. However, if like that doesn't happen and you're at the end, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Just let me know. And I go delete, delete, delete. Everybody's good with that. If I get a thumbs up from you, please. So what's it like being you? What's it like being you? What's it like the ride we just took? Was it like super cool or was it like, I was kind of blended with one of my parts the whole time? And that's what we're interested in. Is what was it like for you? What was it like for you? Who wants to go first? What's it like being you? How's it going? Milo, who Milo
Huh.
helped me create this thing from the beginning, and it's such a treat whenever he shows up. Yay!
Um, hmm. it was a very sweet ride for me personally. I've observed, many different parts and sort of eventually settled my focus or attention on this specific part whose longing it is for union and deliverance. So it's almost like the part that believes itself to be separate longs to not feel separate anymore. And then as we entered into the third view, where you took us into that recognition that even the separate part, in fact, is of the self and is not separate, it was such a sweet, it was such a sweet recognition that that too is an expression of love. That the sort of forgetting and feeling separate is also not separate, if that makes sense. Hmm.
Question. This this longing for union and deliverance, and just for all of us, and kind of Rowena being new with us and want to fully include her in this part of our exploration today is it's almost to stay in the experience. There's no like being in the bleachers. Like we get to stay in our journeys together. And like when Milo's sharing here, it's as if he's facilitating us all. He's sharing for us all. And so my question for all of us, as per example, is what happens for you when Milo speaks of, and then there are these parts that are longing for union and deliverance. What comes up in you? Is there Are there parts that come up like I'm not really sure what he's talking about there, deliverance? Nora's like, yep. And like what parts show up? And then or like or another part like, I wonder how that how do I relate to that? And then can you also find the self that just welcomes, celebrates, enjoys how life is moving in Milo? And like can are we are how intimate are we with Milo's parts, his system right now as he shares? And then my question for you, Milo, is this this longing for deliverance, for union. What is found? What is that? What would it give your system? What does it give your parts? This deliverance.
I think ultimately there's a longing for peace. I think that's the sort of quality of the day. Yeah.
And what's that like? This longing for peace. It's for all of us. Longing for peace. What is peace? How do we know peace is here when we taste it? For all of us, what's most like peace that's here now? What's the flavor of that? As Milo is helping us. I can't read that from Raymond. But
He's asking if the room is still open, if he will be able to rejoin if he jumps on a different device.
oh, thank you. I am. It is now open. Yes. And so, what is Milo? What's found with this long? What is peace? What is peace in your system? How do you know peace is here?
Yeah. So the way that it's showing up right now, it's like a awareness of the striving and the desire for absolution, of like just letting go, ceasing to strive, ceasing to want to go anywhere really. So there's like a sense of wanting to, hmm, yeah, so many ways to put it, right? But there's like a sense of wanting to arrive, to be delivered.
And then this, as Milo describes, it's like a ceasing of wanting, a ceasing of wanting. How does that translate into us? Like some people, this Rupert Spira will call it the absence of wanting, the absence of lack, the absence of seeking, the absence of desire. how does that play in each of our systems? This peace as the absence of seeking, wanting, desiring. Can we know when there isn't, when we've touched that absence of? One more question, my eyes is it's just so fun to have you here. Um, what about in that absence? How somatically? How do you know peace is here? What's that like?
Mhm. Okay, so somatically turning to striving first, because that seems to be the cloud that obscures the peace, that shows up as a lower constriction in the front of my body. I feel something in my abdomen, a bit in my chest, and there's a sense of um, hmm, not really having landed in the chair fully, like my body's sort of ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
I literally will have to go soon because I have a meeting starting in a couple of minutes, which I will intend to be late to. So I will stay for a little while longer. But there is that sense of, like it's almost, holographic in that sense that I'm on my way somewhere, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just settled in the present moment here now.
Settled in the present moment here now. First, where does that take all of us? Those words of Milo, settled in the present moment here now. Hmm. What else we do? So it's only got you for a few more minutes, Milo. What else do you want to share with us? What else you got?
Yeah. That I think that simultaneous qualities here that I would like to comment on, that even though I notice myself, I'm so aware of these parts that are sort of, on their way somewhere, whether it's reaching for that absolution and for deeper peace, or whether it's rushing to the next meeting, there is that movement. And yet I'm also aware simultaneously of that sense of peace that is already here. Sort of as that background piece and joy and connection and warmth of being with all of you here. And that's nice to kind of, it's almost like the system is also learning that it doesn't have to be it doesn't need a total absence of any parts activity. The parts can be here with all of their sort of burdens and pains and longings or celebrations. And that piece of that blue sky can still be glimpsed from through these clouds. Yeah. Mm. Mm.
How does that translate for all of us? As Milo describes what simultaneity is in his system, that the clouds, the seeking, the I've got to go to the next meeting, all of that's happening in the foreground. At the same time, there's this awareness of the peace, the intrinsic peace in his system that's here. What's the quality for you? For Milo, it's peace. What's the quality of the simultaneity for you right now? Is it okayness? Is it flow? Is it connectedness? Is it love? Is it joy? Is it stillness, emptiness, equanimity? How do you find? Is it like riding a bike to find that simultaneity? Is there a sense of balance to find it, to be able to have both and in your system? What's that like? Anything else, Milo?
Mm. Mm. Thank you.
So, what's that like for everybody to hear where Milo went? Anything bubbling before we go to who wants to go next? Anything bubbling in response to Milo's share? Does it touch anything particular? Anything you'd like to share?
When you talked about being in the flow, there was somehow an attunement. The energy shifted, at least I sensed, and more of an engagement somehow with something, the flow that was already here. Yeah, that came forward.
Mhm. Thank you. As we hear Rowena speak of this word flow, in the flow, that something changed, engagement changed. Where does that go in your system? What parts arise as you hear her say that? And then what's the background? What's the simultaneity? What's always here? Is it flow? And what's most like flow that's here now for each of us? Thank you, Rowena. Anything else bubbling in response to what we've had so far? And then we'll go to who wants to share next. Anything else bubbling with Milo's? Raymond!
Yeah, so I like the word settled that I think Milo used. And for me, Sid, it is that classic analogy of it's like a jar of muddy water sometimes. So there's cloudiness, everything's there, the simultaneous aspect of it's there. But when we become silent and still, and we know this analogy, a lot of us, then that mud begins to settle. It doesn't disappear. And the two words that came to me were, in terms of the difference between the settled, non-moving state and that confused, mixed up state, is that one feels gathered and the other feels scattered. Just like the mud in the glass. So when I'm drawn inside, I feel gathered together. Something's gathering, holding, if you like, embracing would be a good word. But the difference is when I feel gathered, I don't feel scattered.
Wow, awesome. How's that for all of us? Like in Raymond's, a sense of gathered or scattered. Maybe you have a different way of having this discernment. What's your version of gathered? Is it harmony? Is it peace? Is it flow? Is it connectedness? What's your version of scattered? Is it dissonance, cacophony, polarization? And then one last question for all of us. Can all of that be here? Can all of that be welcomed? Oh, there's gatheredness, there's harmony here. Oh, there's scatteredness, there's dissonance, there's polarity. And let's go around because we've only got Milo for a few more minutes just to hear from everybody. How about this one? The question of what this background, what this primary flavor of beingness is for you, for each of us right now, of self, of the sky, of this simultaneity, this sits in the background. What is your word for beingness, for this hot tub, for this space, for self right now? What would your one word be? And if as we're on Raymond, what's yours?
My one word would be gathered.
Thank you. And I'm just gonna go in the order of my screen. Milo.
Uh, Sorry, can you remind me of the prompt? My mind just started dancing to
Uh, wow. Just for all of us, as Milo just went so to the now, right? As Raymond's music came, it's like, whoa, dance party, and here we are. It's like, what's it like to be here now? To be here now, like nothing needs to be done. Here we are. Well, music, fun. Oh, Milo's here, Rowena's here, Jack's here. And then the curiosity was, what would be your one word for this beingness, for this background right now?
Perhaps because of the music, but my word is heartbeat.
Beautiful. Heartbeat. Where do we all can we find that? What's most like heartbeat for each of us? Thank you, Milo. Jack, what's your word?
I'm sort of vacillating between bliss and love, I guess.
Bliss and love. For each of us, what's most like? It's most like bliss and love that's here now for us. Thank you, Jack. Rowena, what's your word?
A little bit in between amusement and joy. It's not like full out joy, but there's enjoyment, but there's also sort of like an amused quality somehow. Yeah. Yeah.
And for us, just
And
because this
it's
is such a
amused
gift.
on looking here, coming from not being amused at,
Yes.
yeah.
Can we
It's like,
feel that? Can we enjoy that as we're all hearing Rowena speak of this amusement, this joy, amusement, joy? Can we feel it like a tuning fork, a piano key? Can we find the key in us that's most like what Rowena's pointing to? This delight, this amusement, joy. What's that like in you? And can you find that it's not caused? It can just be intrinsic to your nature. It can just be this background. Thank you, Rowena. Sarah, what's your word today?
Fun. Yeah, it's fun.
Sun? Like sun, like the sunshine, the sun?
Oh, it's fun.
Oh, fun, fun.
Yeah.
You're really pushing us, Sarah. Fun. Where do we go with that? Especially as adults, right? Fun, like fun being an intrinsic quality of our nature, causeless, fun, not conditioned on experience. There's just fun here. How does that show up in each of us? And maybe our word is different. Maybe it's play. Maybe it's more what Rowena was saying, this amusement, this joy, or maybe we can fully go where Sarah's speaking of fun. How would you find that? How do you translate that into your systems? Thank you, Sarah. Nora, where do you go with this? How is being this expressing in you right now?
I like Sarah's word fun, but I was connection was my word before I heard fun.
Thank you. As we hear connection, as we hear Nora's word of connection, what's most like connection, connectedness that's here now? What's that like to be in connectedness? Do you have parts that love it? It's like, oh, connection, yes. Something just rests in it. What's it like to be connection? All right, that's a lot. We'll do another one of my shakes. And who wants to share what's going on in you? What was it like going through those views, talking about all of this, talking about what your parts want? What do you parts want? What do you want? Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Yay!
Yeah, connection was good because I feel the connection with people that are on the screen, but also the connection with the parts that I feel. And I always had a problem with feeling somatically in my body, but today I was very aware of where I felt it in my body. And I was also very aware that the parts changed as you were speaking earlier. And yes, there was peace. There there was also very much so the yeah, I think it's a very old part that I don't feel confident speaking with a group, and that I don't feel that I'm able to put into words. Yeah, because Rowena, even though you're new, what you said sounded so good, I suppose, in the fact that it was exactly how you felt. And I don't feel that confident with that. So I felt that part. And I think I've felt that for a long time. So it's probably
Let
no
me
harm for me to welcome it.
let me just invite everyone in here and just check in. What's this like for you right now as Nora's sharing, as she's giving us a window into her precious system, into her parts that don't feel so comfortable talking about something? What's it like as we're hearing that in her? Do you have parts that are, are there parts that are kind of understanding, thinking about, maybe have suggestions? Sometimes we have therapy parts that come up and want to help parts. We just to notice what comes up. Maybe there's a comparison part. Oh, wow, I happen to have that just like that in my system. And then can we also find this that just welcomes everything that Nora is speaking of and is fascinated by her parts that are showing up? And the invitation here is not to be nice. This is kind of the depths of, we're playing on a lot of layers here. And the idea is, if we can truly welcome, enjoy, be fascinated with everything that's arising in Nora, it's like something really cool happens. Like it's an easy way. It's easier to be intimate with her parts often than our own. And if we can really enjoy and be intimate with each other's parts, something magically happens. That then suddenly we find, like, wow, I am welcoming everything that arises in me. I'm fascinated by my parts, even the ones that are difficult to be with. How's it going, Nora? What's it like, Nora? You shared that sometimes there's a difficulty being somatically with some of the parts, with some of what arises inside. First, we can all relate to that, right? How do we relate to that? The difficulty of being somatically with parts, because that sometimes is the gift of IFS. Like, we can be aware of parts separate from us. We can speak for them, but then it ultimately opens as well into knowing them somatically, knowing the feelings and sensations and being intimate with that. As you hear me say that, does it bring up some resistance? Like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Do you really want me to do that? Do we have parts that are like a little resistant to that? And then can we also find, wow, to really feel these parts, there's something really full and nice, and there's something that's really yummy in that. How's it play in you, Nora?
Yes, I was aware of the feeling, or the feeling is in my lower belly, and that at times it just went away and then it came back again, so yeah, I'm never sure if I'm doing it right, but I think you said that. Yeah, that's welcome as well, I suppose.
Yeah. So as we hear Nora's part, we hear that voice of, I'm not sure I'm doing it right. As we hear that expression in Nora, can we see the innocence of it? Is it just welcomed and loved? The voice, I'm not sure I'm doing it right. The way I'm feeling it goes away, then I feel it again. And can we all find that voice? We don't want Nora to have a sense of doing this by herself or being out here by herself. When she speaks of, not sure I'm doing it right, can we all find that expression within our own system? And for some of us, it might not be as kind as the way Nora said it. You're not doing it right. It could get, that voice can be kind of harsh inside of us. If we can find that voice or those voices inside of us that say, you're not doing it right, or I don't know if I'm doing it right. Can we see the innocence? Can we sense that there are no bad parts, that these parts are there, they're doing their very best for us? It says you're not doing it right for all of us. Anything else you'd like to share, Nora?
No, it's just that I'm aware that that's a feeling I've had for a long time. So it's very old, and I was always happier a one-to-one rather than speaking in a group. So it's good for me to share. Sorry.
As you're speaking in the group, is it the voice of, I'm not sure I'm doing it right? That one gets louder? Is it that one that gets louder, or what is it that comes up?
The one that I don't really have the language like other people have. So I'm comparing, and yeah, I'd know what I feel, but I'm not able to put it into words, maybe.
I think can we all feel into this, to what Nora's pointing to? This voice, this part that says, I don't have the language. You gotta go from Milo. Oh, Milo, give us a final word. Give us some final sign off.
Just that nothing is foreign, and thank you for sharing, Nora. It's so familiar on some level, and it is true what Sid said, that it is so much easier to see that in others and welcome it. So much love and acceptance for that part of you, Nora, that compares and feels not adequate because you are. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for hanging out. It was good to see you. Bye. Have fun.
With what Milo and Nora was saying, as we feel into Nora, to what she was pointing to. I'm not sure I have the right words. I could do this better. And then especially when you're in a group, that something maybe gets a little bit more uncomfortable with a part that's not certain, not sure. As we sense that part in Nora, do we just welcome? Can we not just like Milo was doing, like just the welcoming of it, the love of it, the appreciation of it? Is there resistance to that part, or is it just welcomed in Nora? How close are we to it? How intimate are we with that part? And then can we find that part in our systems, that expression? I should do it differently. I don't have the right language. Oh, wow. In a group, what changes for you in a group? If something becomes a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more concerned, can we find that expression in our own systems? And can we just adore it, see the innocence of it, and really welcome it? And then how close are we to it? How intimate are we with that part in our own systems? Thank you for taking us on this deep dive, Nora. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. And before we move to who's next, just again, here we are. All we're doing is going from here to here. No place to go, nothing to do. We're just playing and celebrating what's here in each of us, in you. We're interested, really, how is life moving in you? What's happening in you? Who wants to go next? Jack!
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Yeah, for me, when you start talking about foreground and background, that's not really so resonating with me. And the idea of parts obscuring, that doesn't feel right. It feels like parts manifesting, another manifestation, if you will. So, and what happens is I have this cyclic absence of desire. It's cyclical, right? So if I'm a little bit thirsty, I reach over, I take a sip, right? Oh, I'm not thirsty anymore. So it was like a desire to take a sip, and I took it, and now I'm not thirsty anymore. So I'm pretty sure that's not what you're talking about, that absence of desire, but that's sort of the way that desire's been manifesting for me. I've just noticed that. And then I had this image of riding a bike. And have you guys ever seen the it's like a little toy almost. We have a string, right? And you have a person, a figure on a bike, two wheels, but they have two bars, right? And they're holding the two bars, and it because the center of gravity is below where the center of the wire, they don't fall down. It's not possible for them to fall down. So it felt a little bit like, oh, it felt a little bit like that. Like, oh yeah, my center of gravity is way below this, whatever I'm balancing on. So it's like not even possible to fall off his bike. I can suppose I can let go of the bars, but so where's my center of gravity? Is my center of gravity in this beingness, right? Then I really can't fall off of it, right? So that image really came up strong for me. And then um, the two most prominent parts are one is a feeling of pain, and the other one was a desire to drink because I'm thirsty, right? And they're sort of in a balance because my shoulders right now really hurt. So for me to reach over and grab this glass, it hurts me to do that, right? But I do it anyways because I'm thirsty, right? So trying to see, this came from your hour video that you sent us in the last email. The idea of pain being a doorway, if you will, or pain being just as not turning away from pain, or pain is just as you know, you can love pain just as much as you can whatever else you're. Oh, I'm so joyous. Well, I feel a lot of pain, but that doesn't mean I can't be in riding the bike, if you will. So
Can we pause for just a minute because there's so much here. I don't want to lose any of it.
okay,
Just is that cool? Then to go back and continue because there's
do
just
your Sid thing, please.
okay. Just where you started with for Jack's system, foreground, background. It doesn't really. That's not really it. Um, Parts obscuring, not really it. That just doesn't. That's not the way it is in my system anymore. It's not the way it is for Jack. Can you sense into what he's pointing to as his experience? This is the gift. Like we each get to give in spiritual terms, sometimes they call it giving satsang. Like we're each giving satsang to each other and where we're coming from. And if we can really like hear where our friend Jack is speaking from here. And then when he speaks of desire, it's like, well, there's a desire. I'm thirsty. I'm gonna get the glass and have something to drink. We're really looking, we're going I think we're going. Jack and I also we've enjoyed this guy named Locke Kelly, and Locke Kelly has this line like, "What's here when there's no problem to be solved?" And that's kind of what we're speaking of when we speak of this absence of want, this absence of lack. That we're still, hey, I'm thirsty. I'm getting something to drink, but it doesn't become a real problem. It doesn't really block us from the fulfillment that we are. And then what becomes interesting is when that which does block it, the want that does block it. And then when Jack speaks of the center of gravity that's here, this bike image that's really untouched by, it doesn't fall anymore. It's found a center of gravity. And this is what we were exploring with this background and what each of our words were. Like, is that helpful for you? Could you follow along with what he was saying with these bars? And then like he doesn't fall because the center of gravity is so low. And then lastly, then we'll go back to where he's going with all of this. And this is pain. Like, what happens in our systems when pain comes? Because Jack's speaking of pain as a doorway. What happens in our systems? For most of us, we can't really go there because when pain comes, parts come up and they're like, oh, I don't like this. We need to fix this. We need to relieve this. I'll relate to that. When we experience pain, that parts arise. And Jack's kind of speaking of self, this beingness, this openness, this curiosity meeting the pain is how I'm interpreting, and we'll get his clarity on this. And when have you touched that? When pain is here and the parts kind of didn't obscure, like really being intimate with the pain, and then what's found there? Please continue, Jack, and please correct anything that I said and just wherever you go with it.
No, everything came from you, Sid, so I can't correct what's coming from you. I don't, it's coming from you, right? But yeah, so I sometimes see, I like to differentiate between pain and suffering. Okay, like I think so much the psychological stuff you put on top of the pain, right, can be more suffering than the sensation. And then I tend to, my analytical parts could be sort of at peace when I see it as information. Oh, that pain, that's information. That's your body's trying to tell your conscious mind something here. Be careful, or whatever it's trying to tell me, right? Uh, and then then this this part of me came up, and it sort of laughed, and it said, "Oh, I'm sure I'm doing it wrong, but yeah, I'm going to keep going anyway. I don't care. I am sure. It's not that I'm worried I might be doing it wrong. I am sure I am doing it wrong, right? I just hold onto that, but hey, I'm going to do it anyway. So there you go." And
What was that like for us when we
that part just yelled at me like, hey, I'm sure you're doing it wrong. I'm like, okay, you can have your opinion on that. That's fine.
this for all of us when we hear Jack speak for this part? I'm sure you're doing it wrong. I'm sure you're doing. Do we not? Is there just not a love of that expression in him? I'm
But it doesn't even have
sure.
you. It's like sure I. It's not sure. It's sure I am doing it wrong. It's not even pointing to you saying, oh, I'm sure I am doing it wrong. It's way more like, yeah.
Hmm,
Anyway,
notice what's that like for us to hear that in his system?
it says, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. So what are you going to do
Hmm.
about
And what's our
that? Sorry.
version of that? Can we all find that? I'm sure I'm doing this wrong. Can we find when that comes? And is there also something kind of adorable? Can we find an adorable, just as we hear it in Jack's, and it's just, oh, that what a sweet voice. It's like that. Can we find that in our own system? Any final thoughts, Jack? Woo! What was that like? Fully receiving and enjoying Jack's system as he gave us this window in. What was that like? Wow. How's everybody doing? We've been together for an hour. How's our systems doing? I think Raymond was ready to go next, and Raymond often playing what you call it, he's taking off from work in the other room, and so he often and so how are we all doing before we go to Raymond? What's it like being you? How are you? How are you? Just notice what responds. How are you? Is it more foreground or background? How are you? And is everything being welcomed? Can that be welcomed in us? All right, Raymond, take us somewhere. Where are we going?
Yeah, well, I like this I say like. I like this conversation about I'm not doing it right. So, and I think Nora touched on it, and Jack followed up on that a little bit. So we did this session yesterday, Sid, myself, yourself, and Sarah on this call. And I watched that back this morning. I watched a little bit of it last night, watched it back this morning. And I was conscious that when I was watching it, and this is a bit of the flavour of not doing it right, there was a part of me that was like, you should speak less, Raymond. You're saying too much. And as I was sitting watching that this morning, I was, and this is all a learning, but I'm going to be honest, Sid, right now, that there was one point where I watched the video up and that critical voice was there. And maybe it resonates with some of us that we have oftentimes in our lives been silenced by people or circumstances. So that little voice doesn't ever really go away. And I don't really want it to go away, as I said about yesterday. But at one point, Said, you did, as I was watching this back this morning and this critical voice was there, and, with the flavour of, you're not doing this right, you should say less and be quiet. You should be more quiet. And you then came in at the end of some part of me and you did that little dance that you do. That one, yeah. Yeah, this. And I burst out crying immediately, Sid. I absolutely broke down in tears this morning because, and I remember Jim Carrey, the comedian, talking about this, where he became a comedian because he knew he was able to make people feel carefree. And that's what I felt this morning, Sid, when you expressed that carefree thing. In that moment where my voice was going, well, how does it sound to me? It was like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear what you've got to say. Right? It was a little bit like that. And then Sid is on the other side of that going, hey, Raymond, and you're really relaxed and welcoming. And so that critical, I'm not doing it good enough, I should shut up, was countered in the group setting with, and I think Milo did that a wee bit a moment ago. And I suppose I'm saying this, I'm sharing this because when Nora shared her sensitivity and maybe even concern about sharing something, or am I sharing it right, then that was so important for that to be shared, because it then, like Milo said, it's not unfamiliar to me, that feeling. And you might know this expression, Nora, I can speak for Scotland. It's like words are not a problem for me. But what is familiar to me is that critical voice, which when we're in a group setting like this with Sid, sometimes I need the community, someone else in a group to express a part, if you like, of the wholeness that just gives me almost a momentary sense of being carefree and fun. Like, so Jack said that as well. The pain could be there, but I could still, and we've been talking about the simultaneousness of all these things. So, yes, you made me feel normal, Nora, by sharing what you shared. And it helped me reflect on my own, what I in my mind might call abnormalities, but they're not. They're just little things that come and go, and they might be there from history, and they are indeed in my case from history. But my relationship to those voices is different.
How about that? For the gift that we play for each other as we all to enjoy our friend Raymond now, accept, appreciate, celebrate, and what that's like for our part as we meet each other that way. And does it take any work to meet each other that way? Or is that just the self that we've all been focusing on, the self that just welcomes, loves, cares, nurtures, enjoys? Do you have to work at it to enjoy Raymond, to enjoy Nora? Or is it just like, oh, there's just enjoyment here? And I want to suggest that if the enjoyment isn't here, if the connection, the love isn't here, that's so helpful. Anytime it's obscured, that's like, wow, there's a part here, and that's part of our game as well. But just the gift that the gift that we are to each other. How are you doing now, Raymond?
Yeah, I'm here, and yeah, I'm here, and that part of me that. So I did the work this morning, if you can say it like that. It wasn't work. What I mean by work is, because actually, if I'm being honest, Sid, when that sort of that voice comes of the not doing, for me, and it's connected to shame actually, and anybody that knows the difference between guilt and shame, Jack touched on it, I think, a little bit, which is not I've done something wrong, which would be guilt, but I am wrong, which would be shame. So, and I'm okay for shame to appear in my system now because there's a lot of love that has grown as I've felt through the shame. But shame by its very nature, even to be seen, it feels shame. So there's no way you can touch it without. And how does shame get comforted or touched? By love, by another presence that is able to love shame so much till it's absorbed. It gets absorbed.
You see how this is for all of us. When Raymond brings up, and then there's shame here. We might feel it a little bit, shame. How did our systems respond to that? Did any of us have little protectors that come up? It's like, oh, okay, you can talk about that, but I really don't want to go there. Or I don't want to even to feel the shame that's here, as he describes it, as not just I did something wrong, but I am wrong, or there's something wrong with me. Can we find the protectors in our system that are like, oh, I'm not going there? And can we welcome those and enjoy those that take care of us? And then as we hear Raymond speak of the glimpses of shame that still exist in his system, we just loving those. Well, can that be welcomed? Can Raymond's shame, can it be fully welcomed here? Any glimpse of that? Any shame that shows up in any of us, can it be fully welcomed in this, in Rowena's like amusement and joy? Can that even include the shame that's here? Can our welcoming and joy include that? I am, gosh, I wish we had like lots of time together. Like we could just, the shame thing is so freaking rich, especially with Raymond sharing it. But I'm also wanting to get to fully see what Sarah's got for us and Rowena's got for us today. Any final thoughts, Raymond? Thank you. So how are we all doing? Just before we go to Sarah here, how are we all doing? Oh yeah, exactly. Thank you, Rowena. It's like, woo, here we are. Here we are. Here we are. Can we find this is self again? There's okayness here. Even if shame is being touched, that there's some okayness here, there's some peace here, there's some love here, presence here. Hey Sarah, what's here?
Hi. Well, I just wanted to say that, oh, there's a part of me that always feels so good and happy to see Raymond. And it just feels like, oh, we're gonna have a lot of fun today because Raymond's here and he always knows how to talk so well about, about everything. So yeah, there was that, and I do and I do resonate with that shame feeling. Um, and yes, and that part in Nora as well. The I'm doing it wrong. And it's just, yeah, I had to sit with myself, with the part of me that feels like, oh, I can never do anything wrong, anything right. And I had to tell that part that, you can never do something so wrong because, we're human. You're not perfect. You're perfectly imperfect. It's okay for you to do things and not feel happy about the way you're doing it. Um, and there was a sense of relief there for that part that it's in everyone else, it's in all of us. You can be so perfect and still feel like, oh, there's still something wrong. There's still something that I'm doing wrong, or I am wrong, and there's that shame feeling. Um, yeah, and it's just it's this burden. And it came up in my system, and I had to sit with it for a little bit and just acknowledge that it's there and that it comes in waves, every time. Um, like I peel a layer of it, and then there's another layer. There's another shame-based thing that comes up, and that's okay. There's just a sense of just welcoming it all. Like, hey, come up to the surface, so I can clear you, and so we can have more fun.
What about that, Sarah? That it's okay. Does it go back? It's like there's this okay that welcomes it, that sees it. And then does it go back and forth sometimes? Does it like sometimes, sometimes we play with this idea of even these reclining chairs that something like leans forward into the shame and we get a little blended with it and then it goes back and then it's like, oh, it can be welcomed. Or does it, like, what's it like in your system as the layers get touched? Oh, there's the burden, another expression of shame. Does it blend some? You get caught in it and then it steps back and is able to welcome it and appreciate it and then the fun opens up again. What's it like? How does that go?
Well, sometimes it's mild. It's something I can work with. Other times it's so intense, I just want to crawl into a hole and die. So, it depends on what's happening and how my system reacts in that moment. And the more I handle the mild shame, the better I am at handling the intense feeling of shame. Um, and it just gets better. It gets better and better every time. And yeah, hopefully at one point, that intense wave of shame when it comes, I can handle it the same way that I handle the mild one, the small wave. Um, yeah, it's just like riding waves in an ocean, this ocean of shame, and just yeah, and just trying to just navigate it and to do the best that I can. I know that it's okay. Sometimes I can get knocked off but just not drown, just make sure to not drown in it. Um, as long as you're floating, you're okay. And I just comfort myself with that idea that if you're gonna be okay.
Let me ask everybody about this. As we hear, as Sarah says, there's mild shame, mild wave of shame, and that her system, well, it's kind of doing okay with that, welcoming that, staying present, staying here. But then the intense wave comes, and sometimes knocks her off, and it's like, but then something's learning, something's, we call it updating in IFS. Something's opening, updating, and you can see this. It's like it's fun to watch Sarah over time because you can watch her system. You can watch that happen. You can watch the capacity for, let's say, shame or critic parts being welcomed and not completely knocking her off the wave. It's like, whoa, okay, whoa, this little shaky. Whoa, okay, I got my balance again. Here I am, welcoming it. And can we all find that in our own systems? It's like there's some things that come up, some voices, like no problem. They're just being welcomed. Oh, there's that sweet voice again. There's that sweet voice. Oh, you're doing it wrong. Oh, that sweet voice. And then we've got the intense versions that kind of knock us off, but still knock us off the waves. And can there be an enjoyment of that? And can there be even an appreciation of, well, that's more than I can handle right now. That voice is a little too much. If I touch, Sid touched the shame of this woman who broke my heart when I was 16 years old. And it's like how I thought about myself when that happened. It's like, I don't know if I really want to go into that right now. That might be a little too big of a wave for my system. And can we find those, like the wise parts of us that say we're not going to ride that wave right now, or that's a little too much? But as we're hearing Sarah, and she just keeps opening up to more and more bigger waves, can that be enjoyed in our systems? Can that be welcomed? Can that be celebrated? This organicness of how we're opening this journey home. Back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a process. Yeah, it's a process, Sid. Yeah, I just totally feel it. Yeah, when there's a big wave, and yeah, and I feel like um when we're updating, um we're growing. So in a way, it's kind of like this shame is doing us a favor. It's helping us grow in some way. Um, yeah, it's like learning to surf. You have to get knocked off to, to learn to surf, and then once you can surf, you just have so much fun.
Oh.
So yeah, so it's serving a purpose, you know. Um, my system was so resistant to this shame in the past. But once it started to learn that, oh, this is necessary so that we can learn something fun, um, then yeah, then now I accept it. Yeah, I accept it.
Thank you. As we all hear Sarah share this, especially the love of fun in her system, the love of the lightness of being, the dance, the joy, the fun. We can hear that, right? This fun that she uses this word fun. How does that resonate in your system as you hear that? Do you have parts that come up, but that's not practical, that's not real, especially when you're dealing with shame? You can't use fun in the same sentence. And then what do we find that's most like that in us? This fun, this lightness of being, this joy. It's like, yes, this can all be part of the dance, this welcoming the shame, the riding the wave, even with like fall, like surfers, they fall, they have bad falls. And they're like, whoa, that was a good one. It's like, can it possible that it all could be fun, this riding the waves? And that's a big wave of shame. Oh my God, I'm too much, can it all be in fun? Thank you. Gosh, this is like, Sarah, you got to bring this back for us another day. The shame waves. I mean, we could just go. We could all ride together on that one and explore. I love that so much. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Sid. And thank you for today. I do have to go. Thank you so much.
See you later, Sarah.
Bye.
And so as we move to Rowena, Just how are we've got 9 minutes left together, and we none of us know Rowena so well except for what we've gotten so far, and like what's life like in Rowena? What do we guess as we feel into it? What parts are like most pronounced in Rowena? What's self? What's the flavor of self that's here in Rowena? Like, what do we feel? What do we see? What do we enjoy? Rowena, welcome. What's going on? What's it like to be you?
Well, I can't tell you how amazing this time with you is. Sid, you are masterful, and everybody. There were, the little parts with Nora, and then with Jack. All of a sudden, when he was saying, "Oh, I probably did it wrong, but I don't care," or something, there was a huge relaxing in my body, and then a sort of like, there was a total resonance with that, and then Raymond talking. And then Nora with the shame. It's like, yeah, that flavor and resonance sort of with each one, and the joy in it all, the fun in it all, because that really was there. And I've, been doing a ton of stuff, but mostly on my own. And I tend to have a very, sort of rather tough part that gets down to task and doesn't bring in a lot of fun. And so that, I think, is just it's a huge thing. That's why when Sarah said her thing was, her word was fun, and I said amusement, it was like, and there was joy, but the amusement was like the holding back, because somehow that concept or that energy wasn't in my system. I see it in children, my little granddaughter and things, but in my daily life, there hasn't been a lot of that sort of like pure fun. And so I'm so blown over, and thank you so much for having me, and can I come again? And yeah, it's really awesome.
I am curious about this. You said there's kind of some tough parts, and you mentioned there's a task part. And the task part, well, it's not really so much fun. Like this task part you speak of, as we all hear Rowena's task part, can we see the innocence of the task part? In IFS are no bad parts. They're there to do their very best to serve us. Can we see the innocence of the task part? Might we even see, because I promoted this group as like this kid looking in the mirror and seeing radiant presence. Like, could we even maybe glimpse a little in that task part, the one that's okay, this is what needs to be done. This is no real life. We got to get these. Can we even see some radiance or beauty in that task part? Like, what's it like? What's this task part like in you, Rowena?
I mean, it's been brutal at times. And yeah, I think the thing is, it's a conditioned, it's not really me, it's like a conditioned thing, that, yeah, I have to explore. I can't really, really,
What does
really
it long
say.
for? What does it long for? What does it want? And for all of us, if we can
Oh, well,
find
the
our task
taskmaster.
part, just
Mm.
for all of us, if we can find our taskmaster, our task part, our to-do list part, what does it long for in us? What does it really, really want? And Rowena, what do you find for your task part? What is it that it longs for?
I guess it's to have everything in order and in control.
Can we relate to that as we hear Rowena say that, to have everything in order and in control? And then my question is, when that is here, when everything is in order, or there's a sense of being in control, what do you get? What's here?
Rigidity.
But when that, but then it's because but it's longing for. Why is it longing for control or have everything in order? What does it get from that? What does it get? What do we get when we have control or things are in order?
Well, I can't really see like that because I can only see that it's an old system that is completely will never get what it wants because what it wants doesn't exist. And that it's just a holding back of the releasing of the tide into the unknown, into the uncontrollable.
Yes.
And
But
yeah,
can we
just
find it? Can we find it through the control? Like we all know this, to be in control, to have control. Like when we have control, what's felt? What is felt there? What does it give us? I'm going to suggest it goes deeper than control. Like when we have control, that opens up into something for us. It gives us something. Any sense, Rowena? What do you find? What do you find when that happens? When you're successful, when you get everything's done, when you check everything off the list, the task successful. Finally, I got everything done I need to do today, or this week, or this year. Then what?
well, my system got blown. And there's just remnants because yeah, so that old way of trying to achieve and do it got like a bomb went into it.
Yes.
The sort of life got in the way and it got fragmented. And I realized that all the way of learning that system that through which I was conditioned and learned, it functioned very well, but it still couldn't avoid, you know, chaos.
Okay, so
So
something started to see through it. Something started to see through that game of this task, the conditioning, the idea of getting fulfillment. Like you said, it's never going to get what it wants. Getting fulfillment from, if I just do all of this, if I just do it right, if I just have it all in order. Something was seeing through that. We can all relate to that. I think that's what kind of Jack's pointing to when he
yeah,
says that parts can no longer obscure. It's like there's something that's being seen through. And at the same time, I want to suggest, like in my system, when I do, when my taskmaster gets everything done, when I was like, whoa, I got everything done I need to do, there's a sense of relief here. There's a sense of, oh, I can relax. There's a sense of, I can just be here now, or I can go sit on the beach. There's relief here when it does. So it's like, and control, if I get control, for me, there's a sense of, wow, there's safety here. There's some safety here in the control. And I just want to, in our work, sometimes there's a celebration of our parts to really be able to see where everything is trying to, it's something beautiful that they're all working towards, whatever that might be for each of our systems. But that's what I was pointing to. And we're just about out of time. Rowena, any kind of final words?
just huge thank you. And can I come again?
Oh, I sure hope so. Come all the time. Yes.